Good evening. My name is Michael Begay, and today I'm going to be talking to you about study abroad programs. This will be in relation to higher education here at ASU and in general in America. So, my first question today is going to be, where would you go? Um, would you go to Russia? Would you go to South Africa, China, Brazil, or France? These aren't the only options, but these are the ones that come to my mind when I think of study abroad. For me, I would choose France. Why? Because crepes, croissants, more croissants, more food. I don't know. For me, I love food, so that's why I would go to France. But let's go ahead and talk about study abroad in America. So, the first study abroad program in the United States started in the University of Delaware in 1923. It was founded by Raymond W. Kirkbride, a young professor in the Modern Languages Department and a World War I veteran. So, as you can see, in 2013, the University of Delaware celebrated 90 years of their study abroad program. In the pictured here is the first group of study abroad students. So, Kirkbride is in the center, in the second row. And all of these students were third year students who would spend their junior year immersed in the French language and culture. What's interesting about this is that they weren't all students in the French foreign language program at the University of Delaware. So they were given 6 weeks of intensive language training before beginning their studies at the Sorbonne in Paris. This included 3-hour language drills and daily private lessons for 1 hour. Pictured here, they are as a group during their stay. In their commitment to learning the language, they spoke only French amongst themselves and with their host families. So, what's also interesting too is that in future years, the commitment to staying fluent in the language and committing themselves to the language was that participants would have a fine of about $4 or so if one of them spoke English. So there was a really big commitment to this. So that's basically the first study abroad program in the United States, and since then it's just kind of been something that's growing. As we can see today, in terms of study abroad today, there is the CIEE, which was founded in 1947, and the IIE, which was founded in 1919. In addition to that, I'll go ahead and explain what the CIEE does and what the IIE does as well. So, for the CIEE, which was founded in 1947, they believe that they will create opportunities that help bring people together by fostering the development of understanding and mutual respect between the communities and nations by promoting the exchange of ideas and experiences. They help give students, teachers, and young professionals from across the world skills that make them active and responsible global citizens. They do this by offering the most comprehensive lineup of exchange programs and services available. They do this also by assembling the greatest resources, the most experienced and passionate staff in their field. And they also do that by making sure that everyone has access to opportunities and experiences that inform their perspectives and expand their horizons. This is directly from their website. Next, I'll go ahead and talk about the IIE, which was founded in 1919. For the IIE, their mission is to advance international education and access to education worldwide. They provide educational, cultural, and professional opportunities that transcend borders to foster a peaceful and interconnected world where all people achieve their full potential, think and act as global citizens, and build inclusive, thriving communities. They do this by managing scholarships, training, education, and leadership programs. They conduct research and facilitate policy dialogue on global higher education, and they believe that they also protect scholarship around the world. So while those are two very big nonprofit organizations in terms of global education, I'd like to also discuss ASU and their study abroad program. ASU's study abroad program and the study abroad office, directly from their website as well, says that they are committed to enriching the academic experience at Arizona State University by affording students the opportunity to develop the intercultural competence, transnational understanding, and leadership skills required to face global challenges. In cooperation with academic and service units, faculty, and staff, they provide comprehensive support services for the development, implementation, and coordination of academically sound, credit-bearing programs abroad that are accessible to ASU students across all disciplines. Their vision is to guide student development through international experiences for lifelong global engagement and impact. They seek to develop a menu of comprehensive international activities of the highest quality that provide every student with meaningful opportunities for academic and personal growth. They strive to ensure that study abroad programs are cost-effective, safe, and accessible to all students. They offer the expertise and infrastructure necessary to support ASU's global aspirations. In terms of benefits and why this is important to ASU students, or should be important to ASU students, ASU has offered a list of 3 benefits in terms of academic benefits, career benefits, and personal benefits that they can get from participating in a study abroad program. The first, academic benefits. They earn major, minor, elective credits and gain a global perspective in their field of study, while also graduating on time. So, when compared to students who stay on campus, study abroad students are 20% more likely to graduate on time, as they said. In terms of career benefits, they gain a sense of direction and purpose for their career. 85% of study abroad alumni say their experience helped them build skills for the job market like adaptability, effective communication, critical thinking, and decision making. In terms of personal benefits, one can strengthen their personal identity, find new interests and passions, and meet people from around the world. Study abroad students are better prepared to engage in their continualizing global society. In addition to this, I'd also like to discuss the concept of values. In addition to these benefits, I read an article called "The Cultivating Empathy and Empowerment Among Cultural Others, Values, Education, and Study Abroad." In this article, Karen Rodriguez argues that students bear eyewitness to other ways of valuing work and family, other definitions of a meaningful life, etc. Even if students reconfirm certain culturally informed values, the experience serves as a foil that enables them to denaturalize their worldviews and articulate their own convictions. Learning to see one's own cultural makeup also provokes an emancipating process of personal awareness, as parts of self are now seen as cultural products and thus choices versus givens. I find this very interesting because in my own experiences with study abroad programs, I went to Tirana, Albania in the summer of 2010, and I also spent a semester in Switzerland in the fall of 2010, and I found myself realizing how different my worldview can be from others. And this also changed when I was in Albania, as well as when I was in Switzerland. So, in Albania, where the country was under communist control until the 1990s and was now becoming more and more modern and trying to be a part of the European Union. That was a very different experience from America, but also it was also very different from my experience in Switzerland, which is, it has the world's oldest democracy and has this culture of, being on time, following rules, and just being a very peaceful country. So while I don't really hold the same worldviews and values as I did before I went on study abroad, I can appreciate that my worldviews what they were. And now after having these experiences, I can personally attest to the personal benefits of finding my own identity as an American and as an ASU student. And in terms of academic benefits, I did receive, college credit for the courses that I had. So next, I'd like to discuss enrollment at ASU in study abroad programs. This is also from their website. And as you can see, we can see that the participation of students in study abroad programs increased by 34% from 1,361 in the 2008-2009 school year to 1,826 students in the 2012-2013 school year. So this is a trend that we see not only here at ASU, but also at other universities and programs throughout the world. Juniors and seniors, as we can see here, make up the majority of study abroad participants at 61% of the total participants. And this reminds me kind of the first study abroad program with Kirkbride, in which all his participants, I believe 8 of them, were all students in their third year. So kind of the same thing going on there between higher education back in, 1923, higher education now. In terms of students being at a more advanced level, whether of a language or whether they're just more advanced in their studies and they want a different experience. In terms of ethnicity, it's interesting to me that 58% are Caucasian or white, because it reminds me of the statement by Rodriguez earlier in terms of students experiencing new cultures or values of a culture. And in her article, she speaks of this cultural other that students get to have the experience of participating in. So, for an ethnic majority like Caucasian, I think that this experience of experiencing new cultures, new values, that's very different from their own as a Caucasian American in America during these times. It's probably more prominent, and I can totally see that happening. In terms of other minorities, we can see that Hispanics make up 14%, while undesignated makes up 17%. Asian, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander make up 4%, multiracial 3%, Black or African American at 2%, and American Indian or Alaska Native at 1%. So right now I'd like to talk about the role of scholarships. Within ASU's study abroad program, there are scholarships available, and within their program they have it set up so that they provide a handbook to their students called Financing Your Study Abroad. Contained within the handbook is an overview of costs by program type, which are partnership programs, exchange programs, global intensive programs, faculty-directed programs. I personally did an exchange program, so the cost was actually a little bit cheaper than if I were to do a partnership program where you have to pay a partnership fee. In terms of the handbook, though, it's quite helpful because it helps the student understand what type of financial aid is available to the student, whether it's by department or program or on the student's individual financial needs situation. So they can apply scholarships or any financial aid they receive depending on what type of aid it is. So, for example, in an exchange program, if they're doing an exchange program, they typically pay ASU tuition and maybe a fee on top of that, but they don't have to pay a program fee. So, any ASU scholarships or merit based scholarships or whatever that typically would go towards their tuition can be used towards that. Whereas if they have a fee like a partnership program, their tuition may be a part of that, but their aid that they receive for their tuition cannot be used towards that. However, the Study Abroad Office does offer a travel grant for which students can apply based on their need, and this can be helpful in, taking away the cost of it. In terms of offering resources for students who are interested in study abroad, though, the Study Abroad Office does offer a Financing Your Study Abroad workshop in person every 2 weeks. So they do have these resources available for students on campus. They're typically at the Memorial Union. In addition to that, though, they also do acknowledge that students who are online students of part of the ASU online community might want to also study abroad. So they offer monthly workshops for ASU students online. So it's a part of like Adobe Connect and everything. In regards to scholarships and everything, I kind of want to talk about funding. So I chose to look at the IIEU because it's a pretty large organization that has a lot of different programs underneath it. So they offer, I think they're sponsors of the Boren Scholarship Program, the Fulbright, lots of great scholarships and lots of great opportunities for students and scholars around the world. So as we can see, I've pulled up the total expenses and sources of revenue for 2011 and 2014 because those were readily available, and I thought they showed a significant impact. In terms of 2011, they had an overall expenditure of $370 million, and in 2014 it was $593 million, which is a 60% increase. However, we can see that most of their expenses comes from the international exchange of students and scholars. In 2011, it was 70.3%, and in 2014, it was actually 87%. So that was about 17% increase between the 2 years. So that money's going somewhere, and I think it's going to the right place. As such, we can also see that this increase in spending also shows a commitment to increasing access to students as a part of their programs. Their website shows that within the IIE, there are 25,000 participants in 2011, about that number. And in 2014, those participants increased to 35,000. So within that year, those 3 years, they added an additional 10,000 participants within their own programs, which is pretty amazing. And that's about a 40% increase. So in terms of study abroad and higher education, I believe it is onward and upward. The future of study abroad, is definitely a front runner right now, because as we move towards a global education system, we see that there's a value in global education, which is investing in study abroad, international students. We see this through programs that are going strong, like the CIEE and IIE, and they were both founded in the 20th century after the World Wars here at ASU. We have increased participation in study abroad programs and increased funding for programs for organizations like the IIE. So I believe that we must continue to work towards a global education as higher education professionals, especially as higher education works towards internationalization, which kind of brings me to the topic of internationalization. As the American Council for Education says on their website, in order for the United States to have a truly world-class higher education system, colleges and universities must be globally engaged and prepare students to be citizens of a multicultural community, both at home and in a globalized world. Institutions accomplish this by having a multi-dimensional, comprehensive strategy that includes internationalization at home and global engagement with global issues and partners. So, should you study abroad? I'll leave that decision up to you, but I hope you say yes.